we have to do it fast so that we try before Lama Wafiki. It's already 10. This one. Ama ifiki?
get data we transmit every day to our members. In the next few minutes, we will be transmitting today's market data. This information, our members use it to make buying, selling decisions, and we support the whole value chain. We also do training and capacity building. We have our institute called the Grain Business Institute, which is registered with NITA, and we offer competency-based trainings on the whole space of grain trade, from post-harvest all the way to trade finance, and all that. Your Excellency, we also do trade linkages. We have a trade platform called the GSOCO, Online Grain Trading. In GSOCO, we have a network of warehouses. Very many are from here in your county, Nakuru, but also around the whole country, and in Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, all these places. And so we work with the farmers to aggregate their produce, and then we have, when they want to sell, they nominate, and it's put in a platform from where buyers bid, and we facilitate those transactions with our clearing and settlement accounts with various banks. And finally, we are in the policy space where we engage very closely with government in providing solutions for the sector. You are aware there is a Warehouse Receipt Systems Council that is in place today. That is a result of Eagc. We came to government with the idea of warehouse receipting, and we even developed the draft act, which eventually was signed. And we are represented in the county, in the council today. In fact, we had a meeting this morning led by your CEC Agriculture, Dr. Immaculate, where we were discussing how we will mobilize stakeholders in Nakuru to be able to utilize warehouse receipting and all that. In the context of today's engagement, Your Excellency, in March last year, we all know COVID hit this country, and actions were taken to see how to minimize this. But immediately it was discovered one of the biggest hotspots in transmitting COVID and other diseases was markets. Obviously, national government took actions, even county governments took actions. But what we observed at that time was that the quickest and easiest knee-jerk reaction was close markets. Any alternative? Some had, some did not. But Nakuru County stood out. It's the only county that did not just close markets, and instead of just closing markets, you came up with alternatives, you came up with solutions. You provided a Furaha space. It was very well done, and all the other controls of movements and all that. But we got together with the Rockefeller Foundation, and we asked ourselves, in the context of the fact that markets are important, because everybody engages with the market every single day. All our food systems, if markets collapse, food will not move from the farmer to the consumers. And so we realized there was a challenge here with our markets, and because it's only at the market where you can know the value of what you have produced, because when you take it to the market and there's a buyer, then you can have your price discovery that eventually says these tomatoes are worth this much, or this bag of grain is worth this much, because of the interaction between the buyers and the sellers. And so we then conceptualized, how about coming with markets that are smart? And then we even asked ourselves, what constitutes a smart market? The immediate issue then was, how do you make sure that when you come to the market, you can do your shopping and go home with the minimum risk of contracting disease or transmitting disease? To do that, the starting point was the designs, the architectural designs of how we design the markets in terms of spacing, the movement, and all those things. And when we did our study, because that was the first thing we did, we carried out a quick study with our partner IDEO.org. And we realized the markets, how they are being designed over years, were not designed with a human-centered concept around, and they were not designed to be able to provide solutions in terms of movement, interactions, and so on and so forth. So architectural bit is what stood out as one of the key things about a smart market. The next issue, Your Excellency, was you need energy in the markets. Electricity has its own challenges, and we then realized that coming up with a green energy solution, solar power and all that, was a very important solution. Issues of post-harvest losses in the market is another thing we all know. We lose a lot of produce post-harvest, sometimes 18-20% in the market, because the storage conditions are not right, and sometimes you don't have the the cold chains that are operating, water, waste, and then getting information. So we came together and conceptualized a smart market, and we wrote to a number of counties, like the CEC says, Nakuru was one of them. We were pleasantly surprised that immediately our letter landed. Within a few days, a response came. We got a call to a meeting. We came, we visited Afuraha and several other places. We continued engaging to conceptualize smart markets together. And long story cut short, Your Excellency, today we are happy that we will be launching the Naivasha fish market. How did we get to know even about the Naivasha fish market? As we were engaging with your officers, the CEC Trade, and they gave us a good, because that was the second other realization we picked about Nakuru County compared to all the other counties. Nakuru County had a plan for markets. They had a plan for markets, they had put in budgets, they were already doing a lot of renovations in the markets, and put markets with the importance that they deserve. And so it is through that interaction that we got to learn about the plan to settle the hawkers who stand by the side of the road selling the fish, and that already the county government had taken steps to acquire the land, and we then sat together to start designing and so on and so forth. Our colleague from the Rockefeller Foundation, Betty, will give remarks online. And then after that, with your permission, Your Excellency, our partners from Jomo Kenyatta University, whom again we've had an MOU from before, and that we worked with through this process in their School of Architecture. This process is that it involved students at the university in design solutions, and it's been quite rewarding in terms of coming up with homegrown solutions, of course internationally benchmarked, but that work very well. And so at this juncture, and in the interest of time, and with your permission, Your Excellency, I'd like to invite Betty Kibaara to introduce herself and to say a few remarks, after which we will then present to you what it is that we have come up in consultation with your team that will be the Naivasha Smart Market, the Naivasha Smart Fish Market. And so, Betty, if you can hear me, and if our tech team can please put her on so that she can give quick remarks and address Your Excellency, the Governor. Betty? I think it's... So we'll just get technology fixed. Betty, there's a delay in the transmission, so just give us a minute. We get you on. Yeah? Who we tell her to unmute? Yeah. Okay, Betty, we are being asked to ask you to unmute your microphone and do a test. Should we switch this one off? Okay. Do we switch off this one that is talking here? Betty, can you try talking now? Okay, give.
Gerald, can you hear me now?
Yes, Betty, proceed.
Kibaara, the director of the Rockefeller Foundation. And on behalf of the Rockefeller Foundation, we have
seem to have lost Betty.
That will be the Naivasha Smart Market, the Naivasha Smart Fish Market. And so, Betty, if you can hear me, our tech team can please put her on so that she can give quick remarks and address the excellency. Yeah, Betty.
Yeah, we seem to be having a technical challenge. So what do we do? Because we can't hear her. Any other way? Sorry, Betty, we can't hear you. Can you hear me? So I think we can proceed with the. Yes, yes. Okay. Yes. All right. So sorry, Betty, we have a technical challenge. So we will. Governor has just confirmed he'll give us an opportunity to meet him in his office or in Nairobi or in Nakuru to further engage. But for now, we're really sorry technology failed us. So we'll proceed with the process of the presentation now by the Jomo Kenyatta University. Apologies, Governor, for the technical hitch. Please, now I invite architect Juma Oino to present to you the architecture work that we are going to put up in Naivasha. Thank you. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Governor Lee Kinyanjui, and the entire team from the County Government of Nakuru, which is my adopted home. I originally come from Kisii, but now I was negotiating with your constituents that they need to negotiate with me to transfer my vote to Nakuru since I became a resident about 10 years ago. Team from Eagc and all guests, my name is Juma, Oino, architect from the School of Architecture and Building Sciences, JKUAT. With me here is Collins Akeche. Akeche is my third generation student. Between him and I have another member of the team who couldn't make it today because he's on another engagement in Kendube and he couldn't come for this session. But we endeavor to ensure that the cascading of knowledge is continuous all the way down to the public. First, let me say how glad we are to be part of this. When we were first approached by Eagc through an MOU which existed between JKUAT and them, we were very pleased that we could show our expertise. And we've been working closely from right about September last year to a stakeholder engagement which happened, this was 11th December 2020 in the neighborhood with a sub-county team. And we were pleasantly surprised that actually there was a site that existed that they would have liked us to take part in developing a proposal. So we went about reviewing the climatic analysis of the zone. Clearly, of course, when we want to design, we want to align our designs to the environment. And since we are talking about smart systems, the renewable energy concepts, the areas around sustainable development, then we have to really respond to the climate. So we did that. We had a brief, very ambitious, of what we needed to accommodate on a 2-acre piece of land. As you can see, a market, common spaces for traders, blah, blah, parking area, walkways, smart energy solutions, drainage, photovoltaic energy, changing rooms. And we also developed a schedule from December, and we were envisaging that by end of March, we were going to break ground. Clearly, we are still on that path, and I think today is a major milestone. If you look at March and today, in terms of government processes, public processes, I think this is a great achievement. Ordinarily, in projects that I've engaged in, they take years. Then we went through the design process, conceiving the idea. Since it was a fish market, we thought we could abstract from fish the concept of fluidity and flow in terms of form. We also thought in terms of structure we could abstract from the skeleton of the fish, because after you consume, this is what you see. So the whole process from origin to consumption. Then we went about analyzing circulation in those sketches. How do we ensure free-flowing movement through the site? We have the Nakuru-Nairobi highway. This is Nairobi side, that's Nakuru. There is a slip road, which is under construction, I think, by the sub-county government. And our thoughts were that since we are creating another node on the Karai side, to match what is happening, or to even be better than what is happening at Delamere, the flow should be one direction. And we have the vehicular access, we have pedestrian in those small dots, we have the public and private bus circulation in green, which is, I don't know whether it's visible clearly. And the whole idea is that buses park on the edge and they can drive out. Small vehicles and motorist circulation in dotted. And we have parking there, we have parking here, and we have additional parking here, which also we thought we could use for small trucks and van deliveries. Next. We went about abstracting that into form, and we made various sketch models in our studies. As you can see, the stages is towards the growth. We still try to maintain the model of the fish, to develop the form in terms of structure and form. Next. And then we went about planning, spatial arrangement, in the same shape, curvilinear shape. We thought we could arrange stalls in the radiating manner, and originally we thought we could have an open space in the middle, which is multi-purpose, which was still under discussion, and we thought then it could be an open market space. Let's go back. Then at the end here, we thought we could do stores, dry stores and cold stores. We also proposed a waste management plant at the end there, and sanitary station, toilets and the related facilities at this end, so that they are also accessible from the highway. And then initially, we had a mezzanine floor. You go up a ramp, and you have another space at the mezzanine level to create more stores and office space or office spaces for the market management. Next. These are just details of the sanitation and COVID compliance center. That's what I was taught as the new terminology. Complete with heated water supply and just go back. Children changing areas. If you look carefully, you will see some areas for mothers, nursing or mothers with babies to change their kids. We had a elaborate waste management plant at 3 levels, from the basement, 2 basements floors, up to the ground level, and this was to process waste on site. The idea was that nothing, in the spirit of the smart market system, nothing comes out of here if it's not either usable or can be recycled or taken elsewhere for further use. So the detailing of this was ongoing, but with budgeting, we stalled it at that point. But it would be a good idea to have this smart processing plant developed sometime in the future. Next. In terms of form, again, originally, from the idea of the fish, our thoughts were that since it's a strategic site, and you are coming down from Kinungi, you have an aerial view of the site, and you have a worm's eye view of the site. So the concept of the fish, the skeleton, and when you consume the fish, inevitably you have to engage with the eye of the fish. That informed the dome construction or form in that manner. And the whole idea is in the dome structure to allow for free space internally, as we are going to see in a fly-through soon. But the whole idea is to give it a more commanding site, a sense of space, and it's an attraction. I mean, everybody, we are saying that even if it's a market, it gives it a sense of place and identity. And you have a daytime view and a nighttime view. If we had all the budgets, I think if we achieve this, it will be a major statement along that highway. Next. And of course, these are various engagements at JKUAT, at Eagc presentations and stakeholder participation in discussion. This was in Nakuru County, at Grand Winston Hotel. Further engagements with the Smart Markets Committee of Nakuru County, chaired by Honorable David Kuria, my classmate. If he has never told you, at least I can confirm that he went to school. Yeah, and then we worked on a budget. Initial budget was coming to about 479 million. And of course, this is where the rubber meets the road. And when we get here, everybody swings the seats backwards and says, wow, so okay, where is this budget coming from? But upon further engagement in terms of what is available at Rockefeller Foundation, Eagc, and what could come from the county government in the current financial year, we decided that we can descope, yeah, and create some phases. And we thought, first let's reduce the civil works because we had a major road running through the site, omit the waste management plant, reduce the stores, the dome size, we also reduced it, omit the mezzanine floor, limit vehicle access to the front only. Next. Yeah. Provide a borehole and associated infrastructure, make provision for optimization of solar harvesting and rainwater harvesting. And we went back to the drawing board and began again from the first principles. Access only to vehicular access, only to the front. All this, we thought if we create a boundary wall, we could create more stores along the boundary. And in keeping with the first mission, to maintain the dome, albeit not too articulated as originally, but to keep the language moving. And of course, we went back to study to create some sheds around the dome in terms of concept, and these are all developments of it. We thought we could introduce a waste collection area, an emergency area for fire and ambulance. Then we thought we could also add some services area, Huduma Center and the likes. And we also were talking about e-mobility to charge the motorbikes and tuk-tuks, so that all this, since we have a road reserve on this edge, all this space is oriented outwards, so that the services are really towards the outside, and we only allow the inside for a market space, and keep at least one or two, a dry store and a cold store. And we did exploration of the structure of the sheds, if you go back, in terms of, one more, yeah, in terms of how do we create the shed below, solar panels above, which create shelter for the traders below. And as you are going to see next slide, in that structure, we could create stalls in a regular grid to supplement stalls on the edges. And this concept of the shaded area is replicated in a radial manner to maintain the original idea. And of course, all these are exploratory notes on these discussions. And this schedule provides what exactly we did then as a result of that scoping. Next. And then how the form then grew. Do we omit the dome? Then the dome comes back. You know, all this exploration, do we simplify it or otherwise? And all these are studies that we continued in discussion with Eagc and all stakeholders. So all this is just showing the steps. Next. And then now in a more clearer layout, to create the same dome and the stalls around it, the cold and dry store there. We were thinking of sinking a borehole there. I think there was a discussion on this with the Water Services Board. A small office to manage the market area and the services area that we were talking about, oriented to the outside, and all vehicular movement now is only on the front. Next. So the new form is what is shown there in terms of from the original idea to the new form. Of course, now you can see the sheds and the solar panels on top, the service area on this end. Next. This is the service area in terms of structure, the office space, and we were thinking of on the boundary wall, which I think has already been tendered. I hope the contractor has been procured to create some advertising spaces along that hedge. I hope that is still the vision. And the interior space as open as possible. If you look at the dome, it still gives the feeling of open space. Very large dome, airy for air circulation. Air volume per person here is very, useful. Access way, next. And then we thought in terms of scoping, if you see the color coding in red, yellow, brown, I think this is maroon and this is red. We are going to see on the wet areas, in the next slide, we are going to see how this color coding, we thought, if you go to the next slide, the reds are there and the budgets are here. So that if we want to implement this in phases, after descoping, we can then choose which segments to implement first and which segments to follow later. And after descoping, you see the budget reduced by more than half from the original 479 or 489 or thereabout. And so at this stage, I think after further engagement, we were all saying, yes, we are ready to move forward. We have a budget from the donor of about 70 million, which we could utilize, and there was a budget from the county government, I think about, okay, I'm not supposed to mention that, but I think that is the government side, which has already been tendered. And if we put those resources together, at least we can have something to show for all the effort. So, Your Excellency, I think moving forward, we are saying that we are able to implement a project worth about 80-90 million, and we should be able to have something on site in about 5 months. Then before we even move into electioneering mode, we should be there launching the project and probably handing over to the stalls to the vendors. We were just showing, in terms of comparative analysis, markets which have been done by the State Department of Housing. And I'm sure all of us are familiar with them. These are the kind of budgets we are talking about. But in terms of architecture, design, space making, and all that, as scholars in the space of design, there is a lot to think about. So if we are able to develop something at about 100 million, which creates a landmark and statement and solves the problems of society, I think as an engagement between an academic institution, donors, and county governments and national governments, we can show that we are able, if we are able to utilize resources properly, we can still create landmarks. And this, for the 700 million, this is what we get. As scholars, I'm sure, if you look at this and look at apartments in some places, you cannot distinguish whether this is a market or a residential zone or a parking silo for vehicles for that matter. And this disturbs us as scholars or academicians in design space, because then what makes a place a place? If you, we are going to see next, Top Market in Nakuru is a landmark and it's gazetted. There is no other like that. City Market in Nairobi with its barrel shape is the only one of that kind. Wakulima Market with its mushroom structure is the only one of its kind. I want to plead to the counties and all other players that you have a right to demand creative works, because then we will go to a place and remember that this I saw in Nakuru. But if you see this, you may not tell where it belongs. And this kind of architecture, of course, I'm saying this with all due respect, but as a scholar, I'm allowed to make these statements. I keep using my academic freedom to make this kind of statement. So please don't quote me, media, because it can lead to other things. But for our purposes, that's really where we are. We broke down the budget now, probably to do the dome at 50 million, solar and smart systems at that budget. I think this budget moved to the county, waste areas and rainwater harvesting. So this is what we intend to utilize in the intervening period to achieve certain results. Next. And then, of course, in May, we had a revised schedule. And we were expecting that tender action, again, would be around June. But this is now ongoing. At this moment, I think Eagc has invited contractors. And I don't know if you have received any responses. We should be able to complete this in the next two weeks. And we should have a contractor on site before the end of this month. I hope I'm able to say that, Gerald. Groundbreaking, we had projected end of July. So we are not too far. We are not too far from that target. So in terms of programming, we are still within acceptable levels. And we had projected a construction period of 30 weeks. We'll see how that goes. That program is broken down into the schedule there. All the permits now have been secured. We have the approvals from the county. Production drawings are done. Tender process is what is going on here. And of course, these other processes will continue up to when we begin the live contract period, which is going to be probably in another 2 weeks or so. And then in the same breath, Governor, we were asked to look at the Top Market in Nakuru, a heritage site, protected site, to see if we can also give our thoughts, our ideas to that. And again, just like we did for the fish market, we started from the stakeholder engagement. I'm sure if you look keenly, you will be able to identify some faces, some of the members of the county government, ourselves, management, market management teams, and all that. And you can see the area is really calling for intervention. And this is facing the Nyayo Park, which I think there is some work going on as we grow into a city. So we are thinking of how to make this market part of the Nyayo Park, make the street welcoming, create parking and livable spaces. And this is the brief that we were to incorporate, introduce cold rooms. There is a whole section dealing with fish and chicken. And what they do is they put the chicken into paper bags and water as a form of preservation. So our proposal, and I think Eagc's mission, is to help them preserve with cold rooms, remodel or revise renovate, let me say, to renovate the slaughterhouse, repair the floors. The floors are really in dire need of repair. Rainwater harvesting, there was work going on to cover the walkways. But our proposal, as you're going to see, was to increase the surface area for solar and rainwater collection so that we achieve these objectives of smart systems. Repair and improve existing toilets, market offices, COVID control measures, repainting works, and all that. This is what we intended to achieve, and we started those sketches. The current market has a gable roof here, a monopitch roof on either end, all draining towards the pathways or walkways. And we were thinking, supposing we just raise that up, so we have a large surface area, the whole market space is covered, but we have a large surface area to collect water. And since it is raised, we are able now to direct that water through a valley to some down pipes to take them to the tanks. All right? And then in terms of form, when we raise, what does it become? So these are all our explorations on all these ideas we were thinking about. Refurbishing the wet areas, the slaughterhouses on that end. We proposed a ramp to take us up to create a mezzanine floor because originally, of course, the intention was to accommodate all the vendors that are on the outside so that they buy into the project. But as we went about the budget, I think this mezzanine floor was omitted, and then we were able to create at the first floor level offices, a boardroom there, offices, and some service area for the management of the market. All this is in the spirit of trying to win the buy-in of the market management and the users of the market. And I think ideally, we hope that eventually we are going to have this implemented. These are the views, the renovated front areas. If we raise the roof, we create some space up here for air to flow in and out. Give some, like a terraced or balcony space for the mezzanine floor that overlooks the space below. So the space is still airy and allows for free movement around the edges while still allowing for the activities for large volumes of people to take place. When we came to the budget, the QS estimate came to 184 million. Again, this, of course, is always where we have issues with clients, and we broke them down into various items, as you can see listed there. And again, if this is feasible, it can also be done in phases. But this, I think, is now a process under discussion between Eagc and the county government through the Smart Market Committee. Next. And of course, when we were trying to review what else can we do to reduce that budget, so we came up again with a schedule of reduction. What the things that we can omit, those to retain. What do we do with the floor finishes in order to make them cost effective, solar and rainwater harvesting, painting and all that. And when we did that, we came to a revised plan which omitted the mezzanine floor, but we retained the cold store at that upper level above the slaughterhouses. So that's the only thing that was retained there. And the views of the main streets are shown in those drawings. Next. And I think if we were to install solar panels on top and collect rainwater in the valleys, this is what this would look like. But from the elevation, we still maintain some simple character so that for those students of conservation know that if it's a protected heritage site, we cannot change much. We try as much as possible to retain it up to 70% of the facades. But on the inside, we are allowed to make some interventions to make the space functional. Internally, now this is, if we manage to do stall pods, because our project also includes design of these standardized stall pods, the vendors, all of them are supposed to get a standard stall pod. So that this smart concept is continuous, and once you walk into that market, you feel like this space is organized, it's clean, food handling or meets the standards of the public health. The volume allows for adequate air circulation, so the volume per person, air volume per person is within acceptable limits. And then, of course, repaint the walls, the external surfaces, to make them look modern. For top markets, I think this is what Rockefeller was offering. I'm not so sure how far these discussions are ongoing, so these ones I'll leave to Gerald and the donors and CEC. Honorable Komen, I'm sure you are in discussion on this, but yes, Your Excellency, that was our design. We are going to show you some fly-through so that you can appreciate in terms of the third dimension how movement within the space is appreciated. You have it? Sorry about that. Yeah, this is the Nakuru highway, and this is our intended front view, the gateways into the property, the appreciation of the third dimension of the space, circulation around the dome, and really you can see using hollow pods to give us air circulation and free views into the internal space. Right? And the dome structure as viewed from an aerial viewpoint through the back, waste management corner, and the exit. This was how we had proposed to develop this fish market would look like. And I believe that with this attempt, we were going to make a major statement. You can see the areas where we had proposed advertisement slots. These can be sold. These are revenue lines for the county, the advertisement slots, and they are all electronic. All right? If you can show the interior fly through. Yeah, this just shows how the approach is, slipway from the highway. This is under construction. I think the area MCA is already leading this process. Let's finish. Yeah, how to access for trucks. If you are not going in, you can actually just drive straight. Right? And the pedestrian access is right at the frontage. As we come in, you can see how the space opens up into a large volume with ramps taking us to the upper levels and the stall pods organized in the radial manner. Free movement, free air circulation, processing area at the back end where we can process the fish and the lights. The middle area, as I said, we had proposed to have it open, so that is work in progress. You can move it faster. Yeah. So generally, this is the ramp that takes you up. There are two ramps that take you up to the mezzanine floor. This is the central area, but I think the water feature will not be there. But generally, you can appreciate the openness, air circulation, lighting into the space. The mezzanine now in the revised budget, of course, is omitted, but we'll see how this goes. Maybe Rockefeller might have a rethink, or Eagc will have a further discussion on that. We, of course, were allowing some food areas so that the fish is actually also enjoyed within this facility. The cooking area is at that end. But generally, we were hoping to get about 300 vendors in here. I know as a county you look at bigger numbers than those, but this is something that we can discuss based on budgets. Next. I think we can see the top market. Because of time.
We can wait.
Yes, yes. Just stop that. We go to the top market. This is now generally appreciated because it can be seen. So the top market. Stop it. So finally, we are going to see just how the top market would have been would look like if do you have it? Yeah, if we were to implement it, and I hope as a county you can be persuaded to. Is it there? It's not there. Okay, then I think we'll stop there, and we will share the other slides of fly-throughs for the top market as we continue this discussion. So for all of us, that's our presentation. We are, as I said, pleased to be here, and we hope that we will do you justice, and hope that we'll have